Hello, and welcome to Law Photography's workshop, Double Exposure. My name is Stephanie May, and I've been photographing live burlesque for 13 years, and performing burlesque as One Chance Fancy for 9 years. My live burlesque portraits have been published in the Burlesque Coffee Table Book, and have been utilized by burlesque luminaries such as Dita Von Teese and Dirty Martini. I've photographed shows from New York to Paris, from Los Angeles to Atlanta, in dive bars and in historic theaters. I've seen it all. Well, almost. This lesson is intended for burlesque performers who want to learn more about photography, including how to get good live shots, as well as how to work with photographers on portrait sessions. I'll also cover the basics of image copyright, as well as model releases, usage, file formats, and more. If you're not a performer, but you're interested in learning more about live burlesque photography, or even portrait photography, then I hope this workshop will be helpful for you as well. Let's start this lesson off by talking about why we need good images in burlesque. Promotional materials like posters, prints, and social media content all rely on quality imagery. A selfie is fun, and with today's technology can even look polished, but nothing quite beats a well-exposed high-res shot. In addition to using images for promotional materials, an excellent photograph is a great way to commemorate your burlesque career or experience. And who doesn't love a great photo of themselves? Some performers even use images on printed materials like 8x10s, magnets, t-shirts, and more, making themselves some money on the side. This leads us directly into our next topic, copyright and image usage. Let's say you want to use an image that a photographer took of you on a glossy 8x10 to sell, or maybe you want to use an image someone took of you or of someone else on a show poster. This is where copyright comes in. Copyright in photography means that an image is owned by the person who took it. U.S. law states that as soon as the button is pushed and the shutter is clicked, the photographer now owns the copyright for the entirety of their life, and 25 years after. Owning the copyright of an image means that the photographer has exclusive rights over how the image is printed, displayed, reproduced, and distributed. It also means that the photographer has the right to grant or deny permission for derivative works of their images. As the subject of an image, you also have a say in whether the image can be published online or in print. This is where a model release comes in. A model release is a document signed by a recognizable subject of an image. Releases come in many forms, and not all photographers use them. While I always get permission, verbal or written, to publish an image I've taken of someone, I rarely bother with a model release unless I think I'm going to sell the image at a later date. For example, let's say I take an image of you performing in a show, and you don't want me to publish or share it online or in print. You have the right to deny publication of that image, but only if you're recognizable. Mostly, being recognizable in an image is when a photograph includes your face, and sometimes even if your face isn't in the photograph, but there are recognizable features, such as tattoos. If a photographer has taken an unflattering image of you and posted it online, you legally have the right to demand that they take it down. Unless, of course, you sign a model release. Let's go back to the example of printing an image on a poster or to sell on an 8x10 or any other product. In these scenarios, printing the image to sell is considered commercial usage. You would need to ask permission from the photographer to use their image in this way because you'll be making money off of their property. Depending on the photographer, a verbal agreement usually suffices, but often photographers will insist on being credited for their work. You would then include a line credit for the photographer on your product or include their logo. Some photographers will allow commercial usage for performers without requiring a credit. Others will not allow commercial usage at all. It really just depends on the policies of the photographer. Another example would be if you want to use the image and not credit the photographer. This example can often lead to negotiations for copyright buyout or limited licensing. Licensing can get complicated, but I'll explain my own policy to give you an example. If a performer contacts me and says they want to use an image I've taken of them on posters, t-shirts, business cards, glossies, and on their website, and even in publications, but they either can't or don't want to credit me as the photographer. In this case, I would advise them that they are welcome to purchase the image from me in what's known as a buyout. My negotiable rate for image buyout is $500, and it would be considered a limited copyright release. I could spend this whole workshop talking about copyright, but for now I hope this helps you understand rights, usage, and releases just a little bit more. Now I'm going to talk to you about file formats and file sizes. The easy one here is file formats. Most image files are going to be JPEGs, which makes it easy when you're sending and receiving files. RAW format is straight out of the camera and can only be read by certain software. The RAW file is uncompressed, making it a very large size and difficult to share. Once the file is compressed, and in most cases edited, it is saved as a JPEG file, making it easier to share across multiple platforms. The trickier part of this section is understanding file sizes. Low res, high res, what's the difference? High resolution files are known as printable files and are usually between 240 dpi and 300 dpi. dpi stands for dots per inch. You may also hear it referred to as ppi, or pixels per inch. Low resolution files are ideal for using on the web. Low res files must be at least 72 dpi, otherwise known as screen resolution, in order for them to look clear on a screen. If an image is less than 72 dpi, it will look pixelated and low quality. If a producer asks you for a promotional image to promote their show, they're probably going to ask for either high res or low res depending on their needs. It's a good idea for you to not only understand the difference between high res and low res, but also be able to check the file size of the images you have. If you're using a Mac computer, you can open the image file in Preview, select Tools, then Adjust Size. A dialog window will open up, showing the resolution of your file. If you're using a Windows computer, you can right-click on the image file and select Properties and then Details. It will pop up a box showing Image Properties, which has a section for resolution. If you have a low-res file, but you need it to be high-res, you can try to change the file size online using a converter. A Google search will help you find options for this. However, I don't recommend it, especially if an image is going to be printed large. This is called upsampling, and it degrades the image. This can lead to a muddy photograph or a pixelated image. Your best bet would be to contact the photographer and ask if they're comfortable sending you the high-res file. Some photographers may have a fee for this service, and other photographers may not have saved the original image. In this case, you may have to find another photograph to suit your needs. If you want to learn more, there are many articles and videos out there that can teach you all about image resolution. Hopefully, this information covers the basics of what you need to know as a performer. Now we're going to talk about how to work with photographers. Maybe you're a newbie just getting into burlesque and modeling. If you've never had a photo shoot before, and even if you have, I always suggest investing in a professional photographer over a hobbyist or a student. You can take a chance on a student, and you may get a couple of good photographs, but you're more likely to have a quality experience if you hire a pro. The old saying, you get what you pay for, is very true when it comes to photography. To find a photographer in your area, I would start by asking for recommendations from friends and colleagues. You can also do some research online via Google and social media. Search until you find the right fit, and feel free to reach out to them if you have questions. The fees of working with a professional photographer will vary. You may pay $100 or $1,000, depending on what services you're receiving, the experience level of the photographer, and of course, your budget. As a portrait photographer, I charge anywhere from $150 for a headshot session up to $4,000 for a full day experience, including hair and makeup styling, location fees, and high-res retouched images. Some photographers charge by the photo, some charge by the hour. If you're considering a few photographers for portraits, reach out and ask for their price list. They should have everything broken down into different options. I have an option for most budgets, and for the right price can provide almost any additional service someone may want, including wardrobe styling and set design. Just like any other service provider, photographers' professionalism may vary. Communicating via email is always preferred for me, but some photographers like to text or use messenger apps on social media. It's very important to know what you want when communicating with a photographer. Having a concept or aesthetic idea is helpful, but some photographers can consult with you to create the right look or even help inspire you. Let's talk a little about a few portrait session do's and don'ts. Do know what type of images you need: files, retouching, and prints. Do consider professional hair and makeup, especially if you're not confident with your own skills. Do arrive ready, It's very unprofessional to show up unprepared. Do be respectful of the photographer and styling team's time. Do know what type of images you want. Headshots, full length, costumed photos, beauty portraits. Do be prepared to show examples of what you like and don't like. Do ask to see photos on the back of the camera. This can be so helpful for understanding what type of photographs you're getting. Utilize this tip to see what you like and don't like about the photographs. Do be honest about how you're feeling during the session. If you're not loving the experience or the images, let the photographer know and then work with them to get back on track. Do bring a full-length mirror to help with posing. Do trust your photographer. After all, you did the research to find them and you prepared for the session. The photographer you've hired has done this many times before. Trust their experience and know-how. Do breathe during your session. This is one of the biggest tips that I have to offer. Sometimes, if we're holding our breath, it's subconscious, and it creates tension in the face. As soon as you take a big breath in and let it out, it helps your features relax and helps you feel more connected. Now, on to the don'ts. Don't arrive with no hair and makeup styling, unless you're having prearranged styling done on location. Don't bring an entourage. Don't ask for more time than the photographer is able to give. Don't expect the photographer to create something from nothing. Don't be surprised if you're nervous or uncomfortable. This is part of the process. Hopefully your photographer has methods to help you feel confident and relaxed, such as encouraging you and helping you find your best angles. Now, on to the meat of this lesson, live burlesque photography. This portion will be divided up into 7 sections, each covering a different element of live burlesque. Light. The most important element of any photograph, including live burlesque photography, is the light. Whether you have a professional lighting tech shining the spotlight in just the perfect way, or whether you're working with cheap bar lights, know where your light is coming from and know how to find it. If it's blinding you, you're in it. Eye contact. You can make eye contact with audience members, with the horizon, with the lights, or sometimes even with the photographer. Acting. Acting on stage is very important. You can show different emotions such as happy, coy, mysterious, pouty, ecstatic, surprised, expectant, annoyed. You can have intensity. You can have intention. Acting tells the audience how they're supposed to feel during your act. Posing is the next element I want to talk about. Don't be afraid to pause. Look over the shoulder. Use your angles. Think about where your hands and your arms, your legs and your feet are positioned. You can even pose your face, referring back to the acting element we just talked about. Drawing out the movement while you're on stage gives the photographer a chance to capture the shot. When we're talking about posing, one of the most important body parts to consider are your shoulders. Looking over your shoulder, moving your shoulder forward toward your chin. These things create drama and they create lines. Take a look at these example photos that show how different performers use their shoulders. Hair. If you have hair, use it. Grabbing it, flipping it, moving it. However, please make sure that a hair isn't stuck in your eyelash or blocking your face for too long. If you don't have hair, you can still bring attention to your head with your hands in your choreography. Persona. Know your persona. Allow it to come through in facial expressions. Be yourself or your character. Be passionate. Make sure you're committing to it. Costuming. Know it, work with it. Understand how it moves, understand how it flows. Beautiful costuming can really come through in a photograph. Thank you so much for joining me for the virtual workshop, Double Exposure with Law Photography. I hope you learned a few things and that you're inspired to create with photographers. Next time you're up on the burlesque stage, remember the tips and tricks I talked about here. I'll see you out there. Bye.